Hello, my dear players. And today I will be talking about something other than D&D. I'll be talking about a tabletop system called Fate, very specifically Fate Accelerated Edition, which I use a slightly altered version of it, which was altered by a friend of mine named Infinity. Well, it's a very, very fun system. Highly recommend it. Just to give you some context before I start talking about what I want to talk about, is that it is a narrative RP heavy system that seeks to emulate the flow and feel of a comic book specifically. But you can also use it to emulate, I foresee it being able to emulate many other things. Just to show you how flexible it is as a system. It's really fun. It's to break down the basics of it, you basically just have a handful of very broad actions you can take that can be extrapolated to mean a lot of different things. And you just kind of pick approaches, which are like your stats. And yeah, it's very good. It puts a lot of power to the player, and that usually it's kind of recommended for the player to kind of pick an approach to use and then justify why they're picking that approach for a check, as opposed to the DM calling for it. It's very cool. And also they have a system called Fate Points, which players can spend in order to kind of manipulate the flow of the story in some way, or manipulate the flow of the scene of that particular scene of the story in some way. And it's genuinely really cool, really free-flowing, and just really works out in a very fun way if you're good with improv and good with flexibility. And I just wanted to talk about my campaign that I've been running with this, which is it's essentially this almost like X-Men-like setting, where I kind of propose this lore scenario where ever since the early 1970s, people with meta powers have been showing up. Extraordinary abilities. And now, coming into and then due to that, there's all kinds of societal issues that come up. Same question is posed in X-Men of how do we societally treat people with superpowers, and how does that go? And it's very fun. And I've been having a lot of fun with my players, especially recently, where essentially they chose to be a part of, I gave them at session 0, I asked them which faction in the world they wanted to join, and they chose the faction known as the DMP, the Department of Metaphenomena, which is basically the oppressive organizational force that's trying to prevent metas from being as free as they otherwise could be in society. And they decided to join the DMP under the idea that they will probably eventually break away from them. And it's been really fun. We have one player who made a character who can shapeshift and can use illusions a little bit. One player who can manipulate their own blood. One player who makes portals that look like windows. Another player with perfect memory, and possibly some other things going on, but that's a plot twist. Don't want to say it in case they see this video. And that was fun. Yeah, that's everybody. And yeah, it's not something I expected, because they went mostly very low power. They are not They are not like a combat squad, which does make it very interesting, because normally in these types of stories, in these types of worlds, it kind of leans into this scenario of fight bad guy, try to win. But in this scenario, it kind of turns into this more like thriller scenario where there's lots of politics and lots of investigations and trying to play around the oppressive powers of other metas that they can't directly fight. And it's just really, really cool. It's a lot of fun. And yes, and currently they've just now started like the very beginning of what I would call the war arc, so to speak, where all the factions of the world are going to start fucking killing each other, just going at it, no holds bar. And they get to be right there as it starts. It's wonderful. And to kind of get a gist of what the factions they're dealing with is that, they have the DMP, this organizational oppressive force that they're a part of, but aren't really super loyal to. Then there is the Meta Liberation Movement, who are trying to get more rights for metas and stuff. Although they're a little vigilante-like, they have really good intentions. And then we have a group called Meta First, who is the definite villain group. Absolutely a villain group. Who are essentially like the Brotherhood from X-Men. That's essentially what they are. They are meta supremacists. They believe metas should rule the world. And they're really fun because their leader is a guy whose power revolves around manipulating other people's powers. And they have only started to see just how far that goes. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. At some point, I might do a bigger breakdown video on how his powers work, because I had a lot of fun making that up. Yeah. And then the other faction that's in play is, we'll just call it, we'll refer to the faction as the individual who leads them, which is the Face Snatchers group. Yes, there is an individual whose power revolves around stealing people's faces and the identities / consciousnesses associated with those faces. And it is terrifying. They find him absolutely terrifying. Rightfully so. And he has a whole spy network of groups under him due to the fact of stealing the right people's faces and thus having control over those groups due to that. And they don't even fully know how much influence he actually has. There's still a lot that has not been discovered about them. It's fantastic. And that's... there's also the Junkers, who make experimental technology, but they're kind of under the whims of the Face Snatcher. And yeah, that's kind of like the major groups and factions. Some of the important characters, some of the important NPCs and their abilities is like Paul Shays, who's like the leader of the MLM and a big public speaker trying to get people rights. His ability is that he can say a word and then force everyone and everything that hears the word to be compelled by it. And this isn't like mind control, it's like a physical thing. It's like a person's muscles seize up on them and will do as commanded. And then Then there's also the mysterious figure known as Jane Doe, who is the chief, the head of all the DMP. But she has not shown her face, and she is very mysterious, and she does not let anyone know what she truly looks like or sounds like or anything like that. But she'll be becoming important later, and I might make a video extrapolating more when plot twists are out. And then there's also the concept of the 3 children that I should mention. That's very important. You see, what I kind of had happen is that the way the metas first began was a giant explosion that went off in the Nevada desert. And ever since then, metas have been appearing around the world. So people naturally connect it back to the explosion. And it has been said and demonstrated that there were 3 children born on that same night with meta powers. And those 3 children are one child born with the power of the sound of the explosion, one born with the light of the explosion, and one born with its radiation. The one born with the light is a mentor figure who actually goes by Mr. Light. He is a very chaotic individual whom I have act somewhat similarly to a certain SCP character who I will not name. And yeah, they like him a lot, and there's hints that he's kind of sick from his power being a bit too powerful. And then the radiation guy is actually the leader of Meta First. He goes by Father Roswell. And I don't want to say too much about how his power works and how it interacts with people's powers, because, spoilers for my players if they ever watch this video. But, yeah, and then the sound guy, they haven't met him yet, but they will. I think they'll enjoy. So, yeah, and there's also a lot of lore about the powers, the meta powers that are like mysterious, like there's something weird about them, something different. For example, something that has been revealed relatively recently is that every meta person has another little personality in their head that's derived from their meta power somehow. Very few meta people ever get to interact with it or even know it exists, but it does exist in every meta person. It's this alter, is what I like to call it. And it only has a couple of personality traits, usually somewhat based off of the meta power in some way. And they don't really know anything about them beyond that. All they know is that when the character, because the reason why they know about them is because the characters themselves, the players themselves, got to actually interact with them. Interact with their characters' alters. And the only thing they got is that their alters asked for a purpose. Asked for what they should be used for. Why do they exist? That type of thing. And thus they granted them a purpose, they said. One person said, "Oh, you exist to help me protect the people." Oh, another person said, "Oh, you're going to help me protect my friends." And another person said, "You're going to help me find my best friend." This type of thing, based on their respective personalities and goals. And with that, they defined their purpose, gave them more specific of a goal, which may or may not have a direct effect on how their powers develop. We'll see. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun for me, especially because I get to be really anime with it. And speaking of getting anime with it, at some point I do absolutely want to run an anime shonen ass campaign using the Fate system, because I think that would be so much fun. just run like a Naruto game or like a Jujutsu Kaisen game or something using this system would be so much fucking fun. So much. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else for me to really talk about outside of me rambling about individual powers I've made. But if you guys want me to mention any specific powers I've made up or anything, just tell me, and I'll make a video, maybe a full-length video, kind of listing a bunch that I like, or maybe I'll make some smaller videos breaking down more specific ones. I don't know. Whatever you guys want. We'll see. But for now, I appreciate y'all listening to the end. Hope you like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you another time. Bye.